What up, nerds? Jerod here with Changelog. We had a lot of fun filming our Vim With Me series as a companion to episode 450 of the Changelog, all about Vim, that I thought, hey, let's keep it going, shall we? So I grabbed Nick Nisi for you today. If you have any requests of other people you'd like to see Vimming with me, let us know in the comments. Now, a quick spoiler alert for this episode. Nick is actually using Neovim, not Vim, while we record, and it just so happens that he joined me to co-host an episode of the Changelog all about Neovim, which we are shipping very shortly, so stay tuned for that. Oh, and there's one more thing. For some reason, my webcam was glitching during our recording, but it's just for a little bit and doesn't really ruin anything, so bear with us on that. I think you're going to enjoy the video. All right, let's do this. All right, well, I have Nick Nisi here to Vim with me. What's up, Nick?
Hey, how's it going, Jerod?
It's going good. You've been Vimming for a long time. You are a staunch TypeScript proponent as well. Those who listen to JS Party know so, and we're excited to watch you Vim for the first time for me. I know you have a very popular Vim video out there on YouTube, but I haven't personally watched it.
That's okay. It was out of date because most everything has changed, and now as of like the last month, everything has changed, so it's completely out of date. But that's okay.
So you'll be making a new video here soon.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Well, we're excited to see what you do and why you like Vim and how you use it. Go ahead, take it away.
Cool. So I got into Vim just like you did, actually, kind of the same exact story, and I've been using it full time for 10 years now, and I use it primarily inside of Tmux. So when I get in and kind of start my day, I have a little script. Oh, there we go. I have a script called TM to bring up my Tmux sessions. And this is how I Vim every day. And it lists out my sessions. And so I can create a new one and it'll ask me for the name and I can give it something like Vim with me. And then it'll start up a new Tmux session. And this is how I get like a more full IDE experience within Vim. But then I'll typically navigate to, a repo that I'm working on, and I'll rename this window so I can keep track of where I'm at. And as I work throughout the day, I might have different repos that I'm working on. Usually always have my dot files open to kind of tweak things here and there, especially right now with things kind of in flux. But it's a lot of fun to just be able to quickly move and navigate between projects very quickly. And then I will typically run Vim in a full split or a top split like this, and I will just kind of zoom that one so that it takes up the full screen. And then when I need it, I'll just go down to another split, and here's where I can run tests if I have tests.
I see. So how do you accomplish that zoom?
That's just a built-in Tmux command. It's prefix Z. For me, prefix is Control A. So I hit Control A, Z, and that brings me, I was inside of Vim. That brings me to the other split.
Sorry, so these are Tmux splits, not Vim splits.
Right.
So in that case, you can be in two totally different projects. You mean command line, because I will often split inside of Vim just using the SP command. But you could do that inside of a Tmux split. So if you split inside of a split.
Right. So I might have something like a project open, and I'll be looking at some code up here, and then I want to run the tests for that, and I will just quickly open up a split, a Tmux split, and then run the tests down here. And that way I can see them as I go, and I can kind of navigate between them. I can let them run and then full screen the editor again, and they're kind of running in the background, and I can go look at them and see what happens, later on. You can script Tmux to open specific windows and have specific layouts. I keep mine much more fluid to where I'm just kind of opening things as I go and as I need them, and I'll kind of move things around a lot too. So a lot of times, output like that, like big test output, is not super valuable being on the bottom like that. So I might move it over to the side, and then that way I can keep working over in my editor while I see more kind of vertical, the vertical output of the script. And, but otherwise, and then I can just kind of full screen. If I can't read everything, I can full screen back over there. But then when I'm working within Vim, I typically work on a very large monitor. And so I'm not afraid to have several windows open. And so I have mapped to Control H, J, K, and L to kind of manage the splits within Vim itself. So if I hit Control L, it will create a new split because one didn't exist over to the right. Mm-hmm. And so then it just opens the same file over there. And then from there, I can fuzzy find to, the whatever file I want to and have it open over here. And then Control H will bring me back to the left side. But if I hit Control H again, it will create another split to the left of that. And same thing with J and K. And I can move all through everything. And so sometimes, again, I'm on a big monitor, so I can have like 6 splits open like this, and it's totally legible and totally easy to use.
Now, do you enable mouse clicking as well, or do you disable that for yourself? Like, can you click between those?
Yeah, absolutely. I can click, I can scroll, I can highlight, go into visual mode, and work kind of in that way. That really brings a lot of the modern, quote unquote, modernness to this editor, right. I think, because a lot of times I just kind of go with wherever my hand is. If it's on the keyboard, I might just hit Shift V and start highlighting. If I'm already at the mouse, I might just start doing that and then switch back over to the keyboard to like do commands on that. It also depends on how precise I want to be. Like usually I want to be in like visual line mode. So I'm selecting whole lines at a time rather than like pieces of a line.
Right. But very cool. I know there's some Vim users who are against mouse interactions whatsoever. In fact, I did not allow a mouse for myself for many years. And I've just kind of been returning to Vim full time. I've been split editors for a while, but I'm going full time Vim again. And I just enabled mouse clicks this time. And you know what? It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice being able to use your mouse.
Did you disable mouses in your graphical editor?
No, that's probably why I liked the graphical editor, because I could use my mouse.
Right. It's kind of funny because my philosophy when it comes to Vim is I really try and learn like the basics and the defaults for a lot of things, obviously like HJKNL for navigation, things like that. Same thing with like motions and selecting things like, if I want to delete inside of the curly braces, I can say DI curly brace and do that. Like those are kind of built-in motions, and I don't shy away from any of that. But then I just kind of sprinkle on top all of the modern goodness to just keep me fast. Because at the end of the day, Vim makes me fast, but editing code isn't really like the bottleneck. And the big thing is navigating code. And if I'm already at the mouse and I just want to start scrolling, this is faster for me than moving back over and then hitting like Control E to go down or Control Y to go back, things like that.
Very pragmatic approach. Cool. So show us some of your Vim trickery. I know you're a macros fan. I know you've got some other stuff going on. Show us how you use it. Yeah.
So kind of some of the big things that have kept me in Vim over the years is first off, the dot command is just like so important. And this is something, these are things that like Vim emulators will get right too, but it's something that is just so nice being able to rely on and know that it works super well. And when you understand how things like this work, like the dot command and macros, you start writing or you start typing in a way that is repeatable through those repeat commands. And then it overall just makes you faster. And so one way might be like here, inside of here, I have these classes, this button children, and then render result and render result. If I wanted to change this button to like primary button, what I can do is things like I can do CT capital C. So that's change until the first capital C that it finds. And then I can say primary button and then escape. And that whole action of going into insert mode and then out is now repeatable. And I can go anywhere else in the file and just hit the dot command and it will do the exact same thing. Now, like in this case, it'll fail because it won't find a capital C. So it just won't do anything, which is nice. It kind of prevents me from doing anything. But in the ways that I want to repeat things over and over, I can just do it once and do it in a repeatable way and then replicate that everywhere. And that's both good and bad. For the most part, it's good because I just do the same thing. I type everything out once. In the old days, it used to be bad because I might, do something like this where I type out primary and I misspell button, and then I've just replicated that everywhere.
Right.
But luckily, the things like more modern features like the language server client really save me there, because now you can see I've got an error in virtual text showing up over here telling me that it's kind of cut off, but it says that it cannot find the name primary button and all of that. Now that's
cool.
kind of
so that language server feature is not a built-in though, right? This is now we're getting to fancier Vim things.
That is sort of correct. It is a built-in feature in Neovim 0.5, which is what this is. I should clarify that I have actually
pay no attention to the man behind the behind the Vim.
Yeah.
So this is Neovim. This is not Vim. It's Neovim.
It's Neovim. And so that it's something that I've used since pretty early on. I guess not super early on, but I initially made the switch over. If I am remembering correctly, I wanted to be able to use the async features of Neovim. It had this way of running async code in the background. So things like doing your linting and things like that before, I could have it do that linting and then it would show like, things over in the gutter. But that linting process was synchronous. And so it would literally freeze the editor while it was doing that, which slows you down, and you don't want that. So Neovim, I think, was the first to introduce asynchronous functions, or an asynchronous mode, to where it could run that and then update the UI asynchronously. So I could just keep editing and then things just kind of appear as I change things. So you can see I just keep editing, but eventually I just get an issue with that. And so that was why I initially switched over. And then with the recent release of Neovim 0.5, which just came out this past June of 2021, it really changes the game, because it includes things like a native language server client, and also it has native support for a plugin called Tree Sitter, which really builds like an AST. You can think of it for every file that you're loading. And so I actually have a plugin called TS Playground that I can toggle on and off. And over here on the left, as I'm navigating through, it's highlighting on the right the code that I'm at. I'm actually navigating on the right side. So I'm in here and I'm in a string fragment. And I go here, now I'm in a different string fragment. And if I go over here, now I'm on a property identifier. And this is a type annotation that I'm starting here. And inside of that type annotation, it has things like that it's a union type. And here's the string literals that it's unioning with. And, this is kind of interesting from a, oh, that's cool. The way that it builds this playground here is not super entirely useful day to day, but the fact that the editor now knows this level of detail about every file that I'm editing really comes into play in terms of what I can do. So this is actually better syntax highlighting, is kind of the first thing that you'll notice when you switch from non-tree sitter to a tree sitter theme, is because it knows, that this is a property and this is a type, and it can highlight things in very specific ways. And it's not just kind of relying on like regular expressions or trying to figure out things throughout the file. It's actually like looking at the AST and then applying syntax highlighting based on the types of things within the file. So that's really cool.
Any other advantages to Tree Sitter having this AST grok your code that's in the file and know intimately everything that you're currently the cursor is on? Does that unlock other things that you found, or are these the two main examples we have so far?
Like another example, just kind of going back to the highlighting thing, is like I can now enable things that more modern editors have, like this rainbow support. And so you can see every new instance of parentheses has and like curly brackets has its own color. And so those colors will match down to the closing pieces of them. And so it's a little bit easier to do that. I kind of find it a little distracting. Maybe I just need to get used to it. So I had it disabled, but it is something that can easily be enabled through Tree Sitter, which is really cool.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a little too colorful for me. I like a subset of certain colors.
Yep.
But I can see how you might like that, because you might be confused of which curly braces is one attached to. Well, that one's orange, that one's green, so they don't match.
Yeah. But I can definitely see the uses for it, especially, well, this file isn't too difficult to follow along. But
yeah, in
more complex files where there's a lot of hierarchy, I can definitely see it coming into play. But yeah, the kind of getting back to the basics, like the repeat command or the dot command is really powerful. Another big thing that you might not think comes into play a lot, but actually kind of can, is like being able to record macros and play them over and over again. And a macro is kind of just an example of like a motion, but it also includes like the actual like movement when you're not in insert mode. So it just literally records every keystroke that you do. And if you take that in a specific way, you can turn that into a repeatable sequence that you can do over and over. And so this is my old vimrc or init.vim written in Vim script. And so like an example I might have is going and getting some of the plugins that I've got installed. I have 54 plugins, so I definitely don't shy away from those. But what I can do is maybe take a couple of these plugins and I could go over to my plugins.lua file. And these are, you can now completely configure Vim with the Lua scripting language. And so one thing that can kind of really come in and help you is macros with this, like for translating between different formats or different ways. And so one thing, like for example, when I was converting this over to Lua, is I can't just call plug. I have to actually pass this as a command to Vim and then just pass that in as a string and it will go. Strings, this is unescaped strings with the double square brackets in Lua. And so one thing that I can do is just kind of go Q to start recording a macro and tell it what register I want to record it to. And so this, I'm just putting it at Q because that's easy. I strive to be lazy here. And then I can use Tim Pope's very popular surround plugin to say YSS square bracket. And that put square brackets around the entire line. So it just said YSS means yank. The SS part means the entire line. And then square bracket means I want to put square brackets around the entire line. And then I can use the dot command to repeat that. So that just turned into a string. And then no matter where I'm at on this line, I could hit capital I to go to the beginning, and I could type command and hit escape. And then I could hit caret to go back to the beginning of the line and then hit Q to stop recording. And so that line has been converted. And this line, if I wanted to repeat the process since I recorded it to a macro, I can just do @Q to do it again. And now that that was the last macro that I ran, I can just say @ to rerun the last macro. And now I've got the entire thing converted. And I only had to do it once in a repeatable way, and I was able to do it for every one of these.
Very nice. One thing that you breezed past, which I want to cut back to, was your file finder. So you switched files there very quickly, pulled up a dialog box. You want to tell us about that?
Sure. So that is kind of another piece of why I like Vim so much is when you think about what you do with when you're editing code, is editing is probably the thing that you do the least of, to be honest. Like when you're in Vim, insert mode is probably the least used mode, and it's normal mode that's highlighted down here. That is the mode that you spend most of your time in because you're mostly navigating the file. You're finding the line that you want to edit and then going into edit mode, or you're switching between files and things like that. And I have two ways of doing that. The first way is with just a fuzzy finder. And for this, I use a command line program called FZF that I open in a floating window in Vim. Neovim has floating window support, so it has this, and it will just list out all of the files. And specifically, these are all of the files that are managed by Git. So it's not showing me ignored files. It will show me untracked files. Like if I add a new file, I can find it in there, but it specifically won't be going into node modules for anything. So I don't have 10 million files to search. But then if I want to...
Is that how FZF works by default, or have you set it up that way?
I've set it up that way, and I can kind of show that I have a special FZF .lua that is setting all of that up. But when I'm going through this, I also have, I kind of find it distracting a little bit, especially on a smaller screen. So I have it turned off by default. But I actually have, if I just hit question mark while I'm here, it will show me a preview of the file. And so I can just see that. And it's just showing me like a colorized output of it. And if I use Control J and K to kind of go up and down this list, I can see the previews of each of those. And if I can do it for every file that's in there, and then just use FZF to kind of fuzzy find and narrow it down to exactly the file that I want, hit enter, and it takes me right there. And to do that, I've got these set up, and I'm pretty sure these were pretty much stock from the fzf.vim readme. But these commands, so this is the floating FZF window. It creates a new window in Vim using this open window, opens a buffer that I created in there, and sets these options for it. And then here's where I can control, like, with question mark, I can enable a 50% to the right preview window and all of that. And I define the layout with that, calling this floating FZF function. But what this is calling for each of these, and I have them mapped to leader T, just opens get files. And I believe that is just provided by the fzf.vim. And the -- others tells it to include untracked files, I believe. So it'll show me like if I create a new file. But then I have others like, I think that E, if I hit leader E, that will open up everything. And so this doesn't really have a node modules, but the plug directory is get ignored in my dot files. And now I can go into this if I needed to. So I have like the one that's like programmed into my brain is leader T to open up get files. And then if I need to, I can hit leader E right next to it to open up anything and search for it.
What about finding? Those are in the file names though, right? What about finding, or is that strings inside the files as well?
Nope, that's just the file names. I have a different way of doing that for
basically finding a global find and replace kind of a thing.
Yeah, and that I have set up here with find. This command set up here. This is like a string. That's why it's all green, because I'm sending this to Vim to execute. There might be a Lua way to do it, but I'm still pretty fresh to Lua. But
so because you're configuring in Lua, you have to send things to Vim. Whereas if you were configuring with Vim script, then you would just be, this would be bare. Those are like bare commands basically, right?
Exactly.
Like
if I bring this
style
up, yeah, this is what it would look like in init.vim or in
anybody
a
using
VimRC.
regular Vim and init.vim and a little confused with why things are like double square bracketed is because you're basically passing through Lua to Vim.
That's right. In that case, I am. And it's because I haven't figured out how to do this specifically with Lua. Other things like there's this whole Vim object in Lua that's just like a global object available. And I have things like vim.g is like the global namespace. So I can access things in there. And vim.fn is the like function namespace. So I can call is directory is just a function in Vim. And I can just call it immediately from Lua from here and get to it.
Cool.
But to be able to navigate between, like to find things within files, I have this set up, and it's this capital F find call. And all this does is it pipes it to ripgrep or RG, which is it's like one of those better than grep commands that you can do like ACK or Silver Surfer or things like that. And it's just a fast one written in Rust. And so I can just say find. And if I wanted to find an instance where I said something like tree sitter, then I can do that and hit enter, and it will open up this floating window again with FZF at the bottom. So it pipes everything to FZF, and then it gives me a preview at the top of the like highlighting the line that I'm actually looking at in that file. And I can use Control J and K to navigate between these so I can find exactly which ones I want. Or I can start typing, if I knew, okay, it is in a .vim file, I could type .vim, and I'm just using FZF to kind of fuzzy complete the file name in here or that entire string. And then I can kind of narrow the search further from there. And with that, I can pass anything that I would normally pass to ripgrep. So I can say find in Lua files, that -t, and then I could say tree sitter. And this will exclude all of the .vim files, and it's only .lua files that it's going to show me in here.
I'm totally ganking this from you.
Yeah, it's really great. Really fast.
I have been also setting up Neovim, and I have just very basic versions of these where I'm calling ripgrep with the current file, the current word on the cursor, but it's not doing any of the fancy display and the tweaks you have here. But you said this is basically pulled from FCF's README or docs?
The floating window stuff might be a little more custom, but the essence of this find command and everything is definitely pulled from their docs.
And your dot files are all out there to be consumed, correct?
Absolutely. Right now in both the Vim and Lua forms, because I'm kind of maintaining both at the moment as I experiment with Lua.
Gotcha.
But I've been using the Lua one for weeks now, and it's solid, and I'm pretty sure it's just going to become the default because it's really great. It's reinvigorated me.
Nice. Anything else you want to show me?
Yeah, the in here the Vim has this built-in thing called the quick fix list that if you hit C open, it will open up a split down at the bottom that will just show like a quick fix list of everything. And it's something that in my 10 years of Vimming, I've never really used, but I've started to kind of play with it. And if I, another thing that I set up is I can do something like just type grep, and I could do -t Lua and tree sitter like I was doing. And never mind. I guess it's not going to work. You gotta love that. There we go. And then now if I go C open, it's put all of them in this quick fix list. And so I can use navigation to go between all of these. They're like available always. I can click here and it'll open up at the top, but the list is still open. So I can just do things like quickly navigate between them. Like if I had to, go to every one of these and do something on them. There's also like a way to run commands on every single one of the files in here. And so I could do that, which is really cool. But that's something that I'm experimenting with as I start to really round out my Vim RC, my like core Vim knowledge.
Yeah. Is that the kind of thing where you could work the list down so they're all open, but you like close them line by line as you knock them off a hit list or something? Cool.
Yeah,
I've never even heard of that. See, open.
Yeah, and there's a quick fix list that is like global to your entire Vim session, or in my case, like I think of it as like the Git repository, the Vim project that I'm in. Right. And then there's a location list, which is L open instead of C open. And that is specific to a file that you're in. And it can give you information about, you could have like that populated with things just for that file. So a great example of that, and this is something that I would like to eventually get set up, but I don't have it right now, is being able to put like all of the errors. Like if I have an error right here, it doesn't know what that is. It doesn't know what this is. All of those right there. If I could list those all out in lopen, that would be perfect, but there's no location list. To compensate for that right now, in a lot of ways, I just compensate by adding another plugin. And I have one called Trouble. And if I just hit leader XX, it will open up basically a location list. It kind of does the same thing, but it's kind of styled fancy and such. And it'll show me everything that is a problem. And as I hover over each of these, it's taking me to that line specifically in this file. And this will show everything for the entire project too, or I can just have it scoped to just the file I'm in. But that way I can kind of get a full overview of all of the problems that I have within my project. And then go and...
So does Trouble integrate with the language server then? How does it know trouble?
Yeah. So it's integrating with the language server and showing everything from within there. And so the language server is the thing that's telling me that children is declared, but its value is never used.
Right.
And it will kind of show me there. It's telling me who's doing it. TypeScript is the TypeScript language server. If I had ESLint in this project, ESLint errors would be in here. And that is configured to go through the diagnostic language server, which kind of runs ESLint in the background and then reports it as if it were a language server to Vim, which then displays it both as this virtual text here and in the trouble list down here.
That's cool. Any other aspects of your Vim life that are noteworthy for us before we let you go?
One other thing that I do a lot is because I'm just always in the command line. I really try and stick to command line tools for everything, and that includes Git. But so a lot of times I will just open up a split to do Git things. That might be like doing a Git fetch or doing other things like that. But there is a really great plugin that I use constantly that lets me do a lot of things from within Vim. And so I'm doing more and more without having to really leave Vim. And I don't feel like that's cheating and going to a graphical user interface for Git, because it's still so much Git that it just feels like it's natural. But if I had like, a bunch of changes to this file, let's say I just delete a bunch of stuff and do all of that, then I can just hit :G, capital G, and that will open up a new split that will show me kind of the index for my Git project right now. And I can see that I have one untracked file. I kind of just have my old Vim RC in there that I use as a reference right now, but it's not being tracked by the repository right now. And then I have my changes that I've made to these two files. And I can hit the equal sign to open up and see exactly what changed in here. And so I can see that like in the FZF.lua, I deleted this line and I replaced it with this one that just has a trailing comma on it and then has another string at the bottom of it. And from here, like if I go down to this one and expand it, I can see that there's a number of changes in here. And what you can do is I can either just hit dash to stage that hunk, and now it's down in the staged list, and just that piece of the file that I staged is right there. If I wanted to explicitly stage just like a single line of that even, I can just like use visual mode to highlight that line and put it down here. And now you'll see that I am staging the piece that has the, that's having the trailing comma, but I'm not adding the new line in there. And so it really lets me control what I do with Git and keep my commits as tiny as possible to work. It also does things like within this file, this is actually another plugin, Git Signs, but I can just say, because this little indicator over here is kind of telling me that I have changes here. I changed this line in Git. I can do leader HP, and it will show me that hunk, and it'll show me exactly what changed, right, with a little Vim pop-up. So I can just see that as I'm going along. And I can do another thing like I think HS to undo that hunk and then save it. And if I go back up here, that's been updated.
You're on stage.
Yeah. So it's really cool. And then I can do things. This is going back to Fugitive, but I can do a GV diff split and show just a side-by-side diff of the file. And I can see, I deleted update time and I deleted these 3 lines. And so it's showing me just a quick diff without having to leave Vim, all of that. And then as I'm going through these files and I'm staging in pieces of them, then I can just say gcommit and it opens up another split on top of that where I can just do fix. And I can do my showing Jerod cool stuff. Hit that. Done. Now this shows that there's a new unpushed commit. And then I could just do a G push like that and it'll run it right from within here and then go back to Vim. And I just push that to my dot files.
Oh, sweet.
Yep. That's okay.
Now I'm forever in your dot files.
I am a firm believer in rewriting history. So no, you won't be.
That's true. So I'll be gone by the time this thing publishes.
That's true. But yeah, I just feel like, we spend so much time working with Git and this level of integration right into it. And it really just feels like an extension of command line Git, which I'm really a big fan of. I just really like that so much because it gives me so much more control over, being outside of Git, of Vim and doing like a Git add. I actually forgot add-p to do like the staging hunks and have to go through this question and answer list for everything.
Yeah, I do not like that interface. I actually do use a GUI just for staging hunks or partial stagings. But so this is the first time I've seen Fugitive used in that way. And I gotta say, it's definitely a better UI than the command line UI.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, Nick. Sweet setup. So we will link to your dot files. We will link, which will get you to everything, but we'll also specifically link to some of these plugins that you've mentioned. And yeah, thanks for vimming with me. This was really cool.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Jerod.